Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrane. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking your full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest. Hey everybody, join me today in welcoming Marylou Tyler. She's author of Predictable Revenue and Predictable Prospecting, and she's finding herself at a really interesting flex point between the integration of her frameworks that were so popularized and she created, and AI that is coming now. And what are the jobs to be done that AI can handle, and how is it handling them? It's really, really an interesting conversation. So let's get started with Marylou Tyler. Marylou, welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. It's great to see you again, by the way.
Like we were talking off, what is that, off camera?
Yeah.
Yes, I've aged. I'm aging now. I can really see it because my hair is turning white.
I was saying I'm going gracefully. I got the gray beard. It's all good, but you look healthy, happy,
Yes.
excited. You're in Southern California, as I understand.
Yes, back home in Huntington Beach, just south of Los Angeles International Airport. So a couple blocks from the beach, and we're also the home of Dog Beach. So I'm a crazy dog lover, and so I get down to the beach every day with my dogs.
I didn't know that. How many dogs?
Well, I had two, and then we lost one just recently. So I'm down to one. Thank you. He lived a very long and healthy life, so it's all good. And I have one big boy. He's over 100 pounds, a lab. His name is Elmer. So Elmer goes to the ocean a lot.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I'm up to 3 now.
Wow.
We talked about Des Moines. I recently traveled to Des Moines to pick up our third from my father-in-law and mother-in-law. She was too big for them as they got age. But
my guys are both from Des Moines. Well, the one that died too, but both from Des Moines. They were recareered service dogs. So
I didn't know.
Iowans.
That's awesome. So am I going to get videos of the dog surfing to any of those? Like, does he hop on a surfboard?
Like I said, they're landlocked Iowan dogs, so they don't quite know what waves are all about and why they matter.
Well, let's get into this. I first met you back during when you were working on Predictable Prospecting, and that was a great book and great process that you put together. And you have since published Predictable Revenue. You're getting into some other things. So tell us what's Marylou Tyler up to these days?
Well, after Predictable Prospecting was written in 2016, now just to give people some context about the books, Predictable Revenue was all about systematizing the sales process from lead origin to sales qualified opportunity. It didn't discuss anything about getting to close, but it was all about, maximizing the sustainable growth and mechanizing the actual pipeline so that we can have good, clear ownership, repeatability, and most importantly, consistent results. Then Predictable Prospecting, that book talked about more data-driven segmentation. It started to get into the signal-based optimization to turn some of that guesswork into science. Well, since then, the internet has now been blessed with artificial intelligence. And so for the last, since 2023 now, as soon as chat came out, I immersed myself back into how do I take my frameworks, the Predictable Revenue one, Predictable Prospecting, and what within those frameworks can we safely and consistently automate, that workflows that are repeatable in nature, but leveraging the LLMs that are out there now to help us complete tasks more quickly, more efficiently, with more quality. So things have morphed from predictable revenues, separated roles, because we had such large volumes of data to deal with, to now with the AI version, we're working towards making those conversations of higher quality. And as such, since they're higher quality, we don't need as many of them in our actual pipelines. So I'm completely immersed myself in agentic contextual engineering and figuring out how to take my frameworks and automate where it makes sense so that we have highest impact with least amount of effort as we going through our selling motions.
What's fascinating to me about this is it's all based on having that framework and process that you're able to define and execute, and then it's just morphed in terms of how you're using it. But that base idea of needing a framework for predictability is more important now than ever.
It is. And also, what we forget, well, a lot of my clients forget, is that the CRM isn't just a database. It's an actual diagnostic system, and always has been. I think the last Salesforce 2024 article talked about the fact that CRMs on average hold 10,000 data fields, something like that. Yet the conversion to sales qualified opportunity is still not as good as it could be. And so when you have the opportunity that is lying with these micro signals that the CRM has been storing all this time, we can definitely make subtle changes in engagement, response times, even stage velocity. But it does, as you said, it does require that you have thought through the selling motions that are progressing down that active pipeline and also in the inactive pipeline, the re-engage, follow-up, things like that. And have that done so that you can then compartmentalize the areas of the pipeline that you want to optimize.
Diving into the agentic AI, you've done that a lot more than I have. But so what are some of the areas you're finding that within your framework and within the defined processes that you can optimize that to provide more predictability and provide more impact?
Well, let's take the outbound channel, since both of my books are kind of written more with market share growth, but looking at market share growth that is more predictable in nature, which means we are the drivers of that growth. We're not talking about inbound leads, referral leads, or partner leads, things like that. In that process, the first thing we're trying to do is match the accounts we're working towards our compensation plans, or book of business, or pursuit plans. And we may have 2 to 3 different tiers of accounts that we're chasing. Well, now with the AI in the loop, if you will, we can harvest records a lot easier. We can enrich them a heck of a lot easier. And we can also organize them in a fashion that correlates to what our pursuit plans look like, so that we have the right mix of accounts in play that we can use to progress down the pipeline. So that whole, the administration, we used to have, I think, something like 8 to 10 what we called harvesters that just were looking for information. And then ZoomInfo came in and companies like that. And we got some information, but we still didn't have enough in order to have a quality conversation. Well, now that we can semantically search the internet for any publicly related conversation that's out there, we can overlay that and align it with our unique selling propositions and our key messages, and have it pick what it thinks based on those mathematical formulas are the right people to start conversation, the right moment in time, the right type of conversation. We even understand more now about their levels of awareness, of the sense of urgency around why they should change, why now. We get an understanding of their level of sophistication and understanding the risk of not moving forward. So all of this allows us to frame that initial conversation with a lot more clarity for them and for us as to where they are along that glide path of getting to, for us, a sales qualified opportunity, but for them, really understanding the impact of not making a change.
excuse me, because it still seems a little abstract. So let's bring it down to the actual. So that outbound rhythm, what are some of the things that you're using and how, like specifically in that type of thing? Are you looking at, is this GPT that you're querying? Is this something that's sitting inside? Are you recommending things sit inside CRMs? Are you doing LinkedIn automation? Like how?
It really depends on the use case for the client.
Okay.
In Europe, we're very restricted due to GDPR.
Mhm.
And also a lot of companies that I work with have intelligent knowledge bases and databases and marketing databases that are inside the company, within the walls of the company. So we can't really go out and request something from an LLM like ChatGPT because it's in public domain, right? So
Yeah.
we have to think about what is an equivalent knowledge engine we can use that can reside in some cases within the institution. And luckily, there are a lot of open source LLMs. And remember, an LLM, the only thing that it does really well is predict the next word. That if you give it the word blue, it's going to predict what's the next word to blue that I can send back to Marylou. So it's those engines that have vast knowledge of semantic correlation of words to what's that next word that I should serve up. And where those are housed is really the main question there. So most companies will want something internally, and most providers now are providing enterprise level GPTs that you can query. So the issue is, how do you present the actual prompt of what it is that you want, and how much specificity do you require back from the LLM in order to make sure that it's not hallucinating? So it's the prompt itself that gets you to the result, but where you actually query that prompt is going to depend on the client. But what we've done now, because you can store these prompts in a library, then you can create a system out of it that goes through and serially requests this information. And based on what it gets back, it can ask another type of agent, okay, what is the meaning of this? And based on this particular answer, what's the next step that I should do? So the harvest process, for example, can involve 4 or 5 agents that have a specific task that they are responsible for.
So you need to first lay out a framework and understand what the process is. Then you need to understand the jobs to be done, essentially. So it
is the jobs to be done for each of the roles that you're playing when you're trying to move a person from original or initial conversation to sales qualified opportunity, in my case. Yes.
So each agent in this stack is a very unique job.
Yes.
With parameters.
And usually one main job, because if you ask LLMs to do more than one thing, multitasking, they don't do a very good job either. So single tasking, just the way we like humans to work in sales, you have a prospecting Pomodoro, you have, a discovery call Pomodoro, you have a presentation Pomodoro. Same thing with LLMs. If you give them a single task to do, they will do it much better than if you ask them multiple things.
Huh, that's fascinating. So on the front end, the information gathering is one of the core areas, and then outreach specific. When you look at jobs to be done and things to be replaced, is that outreach automation specific something that you've been able to do well, or is that something that is I don't know, frowned upon or not effective?
Well, it depends what you mean by outreach. I mean, I think the old throw 1,000 names in there and have a tool just send emails is no longer viable, right?
Yes, amen.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
And we've been throttled down to the point where we can't do that anyway. I mean, legally anyway, do that. So what we like to do is say, okay, let me understand the person. Let's get down to the person level that's in this list of 1,000 people. With AI now, you can get down to that person level. How do they like to be contacted? How often do they like to be contacted? What topics are they interested in? What's their level of awareness about the topic where our product is differentiated so that we can start building the rapport with them. So each record now, each person record becomes subject of intense analysis so that you can place them in the appropriate series or sequences for touch, whether it's a warm-up series, whether it's I'm going to try to connect with them at LinkedIn and then do phone. Europe, we're limited. We have to use the telephone as much as possible before we send an email if they're not already opted into our databases. So the systems recognize and know that, and then they suggest a pattern of interrupt for touch that is unique to the individual as opposed to a group of people being thrown into a campaign.
Yeah, it's that ability to listen now and make decisions is more effective than ever. So why is it that I'll just say me on LinkedIn, right? Why is it that I am inundated with the bad and instead of, I mean, obviously not everybody has adopted this to your sophistication, but I am just inundated with things that I know are AI, just again and again and again and again and again. So to do it well, what is the type of care, I guess my question is, the type of care and specificity in that? Like you mentioned a number of things, like you have to get it into the right sequence. You got to listen to the right signals. You got to is there anything specific that listeners could take and say, yeah, you know what, I don't want to implement this unless I have very specific care and feeding on this AI that it's going to make a good impact?
The way that I like to do it is I am the subject matter expert of selling my product. You start there. So as the best salesperson on the planet selling this product at this company, what does my daily workflow look like? What does my workflow for harvesting look like? What am I trying to achieve? What inputs can I give it? And what outputs do I want from each step in my workflow for harvesting? If you break it down to that level, just like we have to do with the stages of the sales process, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? And how are we measuring those outputs so that we know it should advance to the next stage for this example? It's no different with the workflows. It has to start there with that level of granularity of each step in that workflow. You as the subject matter expert, the best salesperson on the planet, when you are getting ready to open up a phone conversation with someone you don't know, what steps do you take to prepare for that first conversation? The AI will need to know each of those steps and also be given guardrails around where it needs to stay in performing those steps for you.
Oh, that's great. That is great advice. And so let's take that then from outbound to the pipeline. Where have you seen the most impact in your work in terms of that? So I now have a qualified sales project. It's in the pipeline. We have our sales process that we've generally worked in our framework. What are the areas that you're seeing most effectively handled by agents at this point?
I think the opportunity to identify micro signals within the pipeline advancement process. So subtle changes in engagement. As an example, one of your decision makers or direct influencers, you sent an email 48 hours ago. They did not reply yet. Should that be a trigger? Should that be something that you need to start worrying about? Yes or no? And the systems can identify that, always have been able to, but now it's easier to actually serve up those early warning signals by just talking to the agent and saying, give me all the records that are greater than 48 hours for this type of decision or influencer in my database right now. And then also, by the way, tell me what the context was of the email that I sent and how that aligns to our unique selling propositions and key messages. And so now you're starting to get lists of people that are early warning signals that used to go unnoticed because that's a lot of code to have to write. in order to get that for engagement or response times or even stage velocity. We used to get the weekly reports of, days in stage, but now we can get days in stage with context around why those records are the way they are, how they got there, and what to do about it. So that's one area that is definitely increasing volume now of pipeline velocity if we can get those micro signals figured out. The other thing is you can now build also early warning triggers during the path from lead origination that's in your house list now in your CRM to sales qualified opportunity. You can get true behavioral data and change that into actionable alerts. And
that's awesome.
Before we couldn't do hardly any of this, right? Because we don't have NLP pattern matching capability within Python code. I mean, we do now, but it was really difficult for us to take this unstructured data that's sitting in our activities, where it's giving us the email text and throwing it into a field called description or something, right? Now we can take all that and build actual patterns. For one B2B client that I had, we actually found 2 patterns that predicted 70% of missed sales qualified opportunities. So we were able to course correct with that.
You got to tell me what those are. I think we talked about this before. This is the one that it's like one word, right? Do you mind sharing?
Well, the main one was, we had the Are We a Fit call, which is in predictable revenue terms. That's for us, we're thinking, is this a waste of my time? But for the client, we're trying to figure out, are we meeting the top 3 or 5 non-starters, that are not going to progress this guy. And hey, the Are We a Fit call was positive, but the next step was to then get the primary contacts from their company so that we can talk about what their business process use cases are and such. So we have to really work towards understanding how to gather the people from their side. So there's a disconnect there of gathering the people to get to that next meeting date, that we saw a lot of just missed opportunities. So obviously the AI system pre-built what they thought were the stakeholders. We confirmed that in the AWAF call, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm going to call these people and get going with this, or find the people. We had the people already that we thought would be good fits, and we confirmed that during the AWAF call. So that was basically folding in a lot of the grunt work that usually happens after the AWAF call and have it prefixed to the AWAF call and attached to the AWAF call, which we were able to schedule time in that meeting for the next meeting.
So, and this is interesting because it's one of the things that Membrane is, as we've built in AI, has been an amazing change for me personally, as being able to go into because I have a very, for those of you that are listening that haven't looked at Membrane, we have a very structured sales process builder that we're able to do and modify and change and allow you to set that framework well. And then what we used to have to do, we had a bunch of flags that we were able to pre-program. Like it was like, hey, if it's been in your pipeline longer than 60 days, throw up a flag and this type of thing. But what's interesting though is now that since we have that framework, layering these things on top, and the massive difference in the amount of research that I have to do now versus what I had to do, and also the understanding. And what I mean by the understanding is that gap between what a red flag in a system means versus essentially an LLM created description of what's going on, right? So that interpretation layer has gone way down. The natural language query has helped in a huge way, and just being able to show that. And that's all goes to speed of operation, I guess, is like, it's like I'm able then to just understand things more effectively and leverage them more effectively than I ever have been, which that's all about what you're building right now. I mean,
it's all available right now. It's just sometimes some clients, you they want it baked in to the system, and some are happy with just providing the prompting in a sort of a package format that the reps can use at their own discretion.
So how are you, if you don't mind sharing then, we had a discussion on some differences in terminology before we set this up, and I'm just understanding, so how are you starting to go deeper? You're talking about context, things like setting up context and context engineering and building agents like that, where I'm stuck at this idea of how do I prompt ChatGPT, but where is this going from here? Like you're diving in more to this. You're learning more about this. You're going to become a context engineer, black belt. Where are we taking this?
Well, where I'm taking it is right now we talk with one or two agents successfully. And where I'm taking it in is the army of agents, right? Who are all responsible for various areas of the pipeline, and they can all share information and know who of their brotherhood to share information with in order to optimize and increase the quality of whatever task they're responsible for. So in order to have this community of like-minded agents that are all serving the ultimate goal of predictable revenue, we need to have a protocol to be able to understand how those conversations go back and forth and how to make sure that, like the phone tree, by the time it gets to the 10th person, the context of the message isn't completely misinterpreted. I'm sure you played that game where you talk to someone and they're supposed to relay the message to somebody else. And by the time it got to the 5th or 6th or 7th person, it wasn't the same message that you had. We have to avoid that with AI because it can get messy really fast.
So, and that means what? So avoid that with AI, but so that means what? Is that tighter guidelines? Is that more agents? And you say protocol.
It's no different than when we were working on packet switching networks back in the day when we were trying to send data back and forth between systems. And it's like, how do we do that? There's a series of rules that we all have to live by, also known as protocols, that allow us to maintain consistency in the network. And I guess it was Anthropic, came out with something called MCP, which is a context protocol that everybody's kind of adopting, but it's still pretty much the wild, wild west because you can build an MCP tool that is not sanctioned. So we have to be really careful about the tools we use because there are tools for harvesting. There are tools for interpreting the unique selling proposition. There are tools for jobs to be done. And so there's all these tools out there that you can combine in building your application. But again, should we build it ourselves or should we leverage a tool? That's kind of where things are right now. So with my stuff, I'm definitely building it myself because I have a protocol and I have a framework for that protocol that I want to make sure is followed at all times.
That's fascinating. Are you coming out with another book to describe all of this by any chance?
Someone asked me to do that and I want to say yes, but the problem is like I'm in an immersion boot camp right now for this particular topic of context engineering and agentic solutions. And even within the course, it's been 6 weeks, things have changed so rapidly that I don't know how to write a book about something that may be completely different by the time it lands. So I'm thinking leveraging more of an agentic version of the book, right? So I'm looking at that as rather than a book, have something that I can completely automate and update with the information as it changes because it's happening so fast right now.
That's a whole new publishing medium I haven't even figured out, but it's true. It's like things are changing so fast.
Yeah. I'm working on a digital twin, a Marylou Tyler digital twin that I hope to have all that information. Yeah, mini-me, but mini-me with relation to predictable prospecting and predictable revenue. So it's completely takes all the frameworks that I've invented and or borrowed and or swiped, whatever it is, to get to predictable revenue, and putting them into this digital twin so that the most current information is available.
So I have one last thing I got to ask you. This is going to have a long preface to it.
Okay.
Well, because we're both sitting here agreeing, and we're talking about things that, 25 years ago, there was no concept we'd be talking about this. But the one thing that we've found, and I think we both agree on, is that the rate of change is remarkably fast. It's faster than it's ever been. And I think we both agree that humans are going to continually be necessary in sales. Do you believe humans as a portion of the B2B sales world are always going to be needed?
I believe that humans, even post-pandemic, we are craving relationships, belly to belly, talking to people. And I think there is a place in the selling process. Now, if it's a product-led sale where, you can buy something for $59, $99, and you don't need to talk to a human, then yeah, okay, I get that. But for these other sales where you're building a long-term relationship, you're still seen as a trusted advisor, you're wanting that capability of picking up the phone and talking to a human, I think, yes, humans are still necessary because, the systems can point out and help us seal the leaks in a pipeline. But to maintain those relationships going forward so that they'll make that buying decision with confidence, I think humans will always be needed.
So that is my next question. What do you think is the core of that we need to work on internally for the next generation of sales experts? Like, what are the core aspects of sales that we need to really get good at? Is that different today than it was before? And if so, how?
Well, training a sales executive, I think, is a very important and often missed piece of the puzzle here, because we can serve up all the right people that are ready to have conversation at whatever level they're at in awareness. But they still need that gentle prod, that gentle push as to why they should continue the conversation with us. And the techniques of being able to persuade somebody and really listen to what their problems are so that they can formulate a conversation that's meaningful to them. I think that that's still an area where sales executives are falling short. And we need to continue always learning and training in how to have more impactful conversations with our prospects and clients. What's changed, though, is now we can get down to that person level so that we can really, in the person level, meaning the salesperson, right? We would train groups of people on our product. We had things called kickoff meetings where everybody gets in a room and then 2 weeks later they forget what they learned. But now we don't have to do that now. We can get to that salesperson level, understand their strengths, their weaknesses, what opportunities they have, what threats could be coming their way that they're not aware of, and really get them fine-tuned, if you will, so that they'll be able to carry on conversations. And then once they have those conversations with AI now, we have a feedback loop mechanism so that they can learn how they did, what they can improve, how they can get better. So this improvement of sales training, I think, is something that we'll continually need to do, especially if there's humans involved in selling.
Awesome. Completely agree. And thank you so much. And thank you so much for the time here. How do people, Marylou, if people want to get in touch with you or check out some of your frameworks and stuff, how do they do that?
Well, the 2 books are on Amazon, Predictable Revenue and Predictable Prospecting. They're kind of old, but the prospecting frameworks and things are still good. The with some caveats on predictable revenue in that, we're definitely reducing the role of the business development representative as a human, but the role is still there. So it's a matter of figuring out whether you want your sales executives to also prospect. For those of us who are a little bit older, we came from the environment of doing all things, prospecting, closing, servicing. So those are 2 books there. I'm on LinkedIn, Marylou Tyler. And then I have a website, maryloutyler.com. There's another way to get a hold of me. On my website is my office phone number, and also you can schedule some time to talk to me one-to-one.
Excellent. And just for everybody out there, what type of, in terms of client base and the type of people that you love to talk to, do you have any specifics?
I do. And I'm getting pickier as I get older. I want them to be data-driven. And I know that selling is art and science. I get it. But they need to understand how data is contributing to making good business decisions. I would like them to be in growth mode, but they don't have to be market share growth. They can be product share growth, cross-sell, upsell, renewals, whatever it is, because we have a lot more understanding now of how to increase the lifetime value, how to increase the net dollar revenue, all the things that are important for the base. So I think that that's an area where those clients are good candidates for this type of work I do. Or if you just want a diagnostic on your system, I do a lot of diagnostics for people where I point out the flash points. So if you feel that you want a diagnostic and then you want to take it and go fish with it, then those are good clients as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Everybody, I've known Marylou for some time now. Highly recommend her work. Highly recommend her as a person as well. Really, really appreciate you coming on and doing this with us. And with that, we'll shut it down for today. Sound like a plan?
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Paul.
Okay. All right, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your day. Keep shining bright. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing, all of that good thing. And we'll end it on this time from the Art and Science of Complex Sales. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye now.